Soviet National Championship 1979, the last great triumph of Yefim Geller, who won this championship and not only won by scoring 6 victories with no losses, but also played some brilliant games. And one of them was a game we are going to study now, Belявsky-Geller, the game that was instructive for young players how to play old and ever young Queen's Gambit. d4, d5, c4, c6, knight c3, bishop e7. Geller always stuck to this moves order, and eventually later Belявsky switched to exchange on d5 and playing bishop b4 against Geller in Moscow Interzonal in 1982. But this time Belявsky was more on conventional routes. So this position, and now Geller played knight bd7. So he wanted to avoid classical bishop b7 because Belявsky undoubtedly would have taken on f6. So, and Belявsky didn't work it out well, so after cd5, ed5, castle, bishop b7, instead of playing rook c1, which would be a natural move, he played queen b3. So, and after c5, he created an isolated pawn, but in exchange, black had 2 bishops and very, very comfortable development. It looks that position is quite innocent, and black will have certain problems with isolated pawn, but in fact, Geller was much deeper in his evaluation of the position, and he figured out that this isolated pawn, in fact, offers him very active possibilities, and he managed to develop his initiative very, very quickly. So rook fd1. Probably knight b5 was a better option, trying just to blockade pawn on d4 and keeping knight on f3. But Belявsky still wanted just to, as conventional wisdom tells you, to attack d5 pawn, having knight on d4 and bishop on f3. And let's see what's happened. Queen e7, knight d4, rook d8, rook c1, knight e4, bishop f3, rook e8. So it seems that white's initiative against d5 pawn is not going to work. Moreover, they should always consider a threat knight takes f2 and then queen takes on e3. So that's, for instance, it works after g3, knight takes f2, knight f5, queen e5. So Belявsky tried to release the pressure on f2 and also attack the bishop on c5 by playing knight a4. But then Geller made a brilliant move, knight g5. Now, suddenly, white bishop on f3 is under the threat, and after knight takes c5, b takes c5, white's position may collapse because bishop on f3 will be taken, and then the pawn structure will be ruined. So bishop g4, simply g6, and again taking on c5 would in fact play into black's hand, because after bc5, if white knight goes on f3, then after knight e4, suddenly all white pieces are not well positioned, while black's 2 pawns on d5 and c5 no longer weaknesses, but in fact a strengths, and that could always break through with d5, d4. So Belявsky went back, and knight goes on e4, queen c2, h5, bishop f3, but now h4. So h pawn is also advancing, creating potential weaknesses here, and Geller already is looking at h2 pawn. So queen d3, queen e5. So amazingly, just 10 moves later, all black pieces are well developed. Knight on e4 is a stronghold of black's attack that is developing so easily and nicely. So knight c2, a5. That's an amazing move. That's in fact the greatest move of that game, because after rook c2, while Belявsky's position looked solid, Geller's ingenious maneuver rook e8 demonstrated that all was done in vain. So amazing, play a5, but then rook goes on a8 from the center, from the central position, because on e8 it could support bishop's appearance on a6, which could be the activation of the last remaining passive piece, black piece, and white's position couldn't hold all this pressure. So the only move probably was bishop takes e4, but after d4, white's position, I think, is hopeless. a4, bishop a6, queen d3, and bishop c4. Amazing. White queen is trapped virtually in the middle of the game, in the middle of the board, with just black's bishops and knight on e4 creating total domination. Belявsky had to give up an exchange, but the rest of the game was instructive but less exciting. Geller continued his attack. As you see, a rook comes from A. From A, this rook comes to f6. It's all played a tremendous role. It returned when it was required. Now it comes back on f6, and the decisive attack is being created. So bishop d6, knight f4, and this rook is being sacrificed. Rook takes f4. So, and obviously after e takes f4, queen takes f4, the game is over because there is no protection against intrusion of black's queen on h2. Desperately last played knight c6, knight takes h3, queen g5 check, and this rook that works so nicely comes back on f6, and the game was over. Just next move.